All right, folks, welcome back to the podcast Finding the Truth with Myke Hideous. I'm Myke Hideous, and my co-host and partner in crime, Z. Say hello, Z.
Hello, Z.
Now go back in your cage. So, as you may have been listening and heard, we've been talking about morals and the decline of morals in America. I did want to make one more final comment in this because I didn't get to finish it. But what I was getting at is the whole thing with America and how the younger generation seems to, you hear it all the time. Like when we were kids, you heard your parents saying, these kids today. Well, here I am, 57 years old, and I'm saying, these fucking kids today. The problem with these kids today is that they are losing the ability to be properly, I shouldn't say all of them. A lot of them, there are a lot of smart kids out there. But there's a very good portion of them, a large portion of them, in which are not being properly educated or parented. Now, I watch footage of children, high school, college, in like China, Japan, any of these Asian countries, even Arabic countries. And they are so like militantly focused in being educated, in addition to parenting. Now, like for the Arabic countries, you got the religion is a big part of education, so they're very strict. Okay,
it's more than a big part. I mean, I was I watched this one particular channel on YouTube. And just to underscore, like, basically what a world of difference it is growing up in a Orthodox Muslim family compared to the West. And I wasn't really aware of this, to this degree. Yes, when you're in Islam, you study, the Quran and all the texts. But when you're a child, I guess this is for anybody that want to convert to Islam. I don't remember how big the Quran is. I know it's definitely, probably 1,000 pages or more or something like that. But as a child, you have to memorize every word of the Quran. And so your first 12 years of education...
Same with the Jews.
Well...
Yeah. Hasidic Jews they have to learn that too. They have to read the Torah.
Right. Well, I don't know if it's word for word. They need to know
Practically.
Well, it's not the same thing. I mean, because when I watch this, the YouTube channel I was talking about is called Indigo Traveler, and it's very cool because this guy is from New Zealand, and he's able to get into a lot of countries with his passport that certainly an American probably wouldn't go to. So, like, he went to Mozambique, and recently he was in he was in Haiti as well not too long ago. I mean, Haiti is like the last place on earth anybody who is Caucasian would want to find themselves. And yet, like, the standard of living, that just going back to the Muslim thing, when he was in one particular country, I think it was Mozambique, and they went to a school and they talked to the students. He talked to the students there, and like, what do you do? Oh, we just study the Quran every day. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm pretty sure even in Judaism, your average student does something different than just study the Torah every day. But I mean, we don't need to get deep into Islam so much, but yes, to your point, I mean, religion, if it's not, part of your family or taught to you, where do you get it?
Right. So again, like I was trying to finish up here, is that you compare it. I compare the education system to these other countries, and there is simply no comparison, especially within large cities. For example, New York City, San Francisco, Chicago, a lot of urban areas where you've got kids that they are brought up in the streets, so to speak. They go to school and they bring the streets to the school. And if you mess around with them, they'll pop your ass. Anyway, to finalize things, all I'm saying is that there are some serious problems going on in this country with the new generation that is coming up, being educated. I mean, let's face it. You saw it all with. You see it constantly with when a conservative, all right? Now, for the record, I am not a conservative. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. But when I watch these conservatives...
So, I mean, still, you want to be... Just to clarify this for the audience. So you're just an independent, or do you feel like a libertarian at all?
I'm an independent. I mean, I didn't want to bring that up. That's not part of the topic that I'm trying.
You're just not a part of any party.
No, I'm an independent. I mean,
Yes.
that's what I'm listed as.
Okay.
I won't let the government know what party I'm leaning towards because it's none of their business. So here's what I was getting at. What the fuck was I getting at?
Have a senior moment. It's okay. Just relax there, Grandpa.
So, you see these conservatives who go to do talks at colleges. Ben Shapiro, who's that other guy? Jesse Waters, I think.
I guess he does some
I
touring.
can't remember. Some of these people
Ben
were
Shapiro
conservative.
definitely makes it rounds.
Right.
Brett
So
Cooper is another one that's...
Right, so let me finish before I forget.
Go ahead.
These conservatives go to these colleges, and the left, they protest, they go into the auditorium where they're speaking, they swear, they curse at them, they give them the middle finger, F you, this, that, and the other thing. But yet when they speak, they want you to listen. So it just goes to show you the ignorance that is taught or lack of teaching in college, where you're supposed to be an adult, where you're supposed to learn how to communicate with other people and negotiate or have a conversation when you're at odds with each other, which is the American way. That's how we work things out, or at least we're supposed to. But yet these younger, woke, left-wing, politically correct, liberal crackpots, in my opinion, go to these talks, these speeches, and they just, if you're not on their side, they don't appreciate you. So again, there's a lack of understanding on how to communicate with other people, and that's coming from a college.
Yeah, well, that's part of what they're being educated.
Right. It's an indoctrination.
It is, because, they're being taught, like, this is the way it is, and, don't believe your parents and what you get here outside of the classroom.
Let me ask you a question, Zay.
Hang on, let me just, really stress that point, because I have a friend who's come out of the education system recently, and I get arguments with him all the time, because he definitely has the Marxist socialist perspective on the world. He was venting the other day about rich people and billionaires and how they don't pay enough in taxes. And it's just like, are you serious? They pay more in taxes than the rest of us do.
They pay more than any of us do.
Right. And like, they already do all these philanthropic things if they're smart about it. But it's, the system is so corrupted, again, back to my point, literally for the last 150, 200 years. And I can't recall who it was as a founding father, but it may have been, Franklin. But he pointed out that if we are not able to maintain a country that both had faith and morals, I think he may have used the term morals, then we're not going to be able to keep the republic. Mm-hmm. Because, the Constitution they made is for people that, have that moral foundation of Judeo-Christian values.
Right. And let me stress something. To any of you out there listening who think that America is a democracy, think of this. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. Not to the democratic or democracy for which it, to the republic. It is a republic country, not a democracy.
They did that on purpose because they knew a pure democracy just becomes a bully state. That's One party gets, the upper hand, and the other party doesn't get any say.
Perfect example of what's happening right now.
Yep, exactly. And they're doing everything they can to stay in power through this next election season.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, again, back to our concerns.
Including trying to jail the very leading Republican candidate of the country right now. All right? No matter how much you hate Trump, you cannot deny the facts of what he did as a president for 4 years. They want sweep that under the rug, because that is what the Democratic Party has become. And I can say this: when I was a Democrat, I followed like goose step. Or if whatever they said, I listened and I followed. When Giuliani was mayor of New York City prior to 2001 and the 9/11 issue, everybody was saying on the Democratic side, I had friends all over who were Democrats, politically correct liberal Democrats, and they were all saying the same thing: Giuliani's a Nazi. So did I.
Right.
I said it too, because that's what they were saying, and I followed the goose step.
Yep. And that's what groupthink is all about. I mean, I'm using actually a term from Orwell, Orwell's book, but it is a mentality of the group. And I used to, just to clarify for the audience as well, I was a bleeding heart liberal as well. I transformed more in the early 2000s from listening to talk radio, because I had long commutes and I got tired of listening to music. And suddenly I started listening to people have conversations about the issues of the day, and I realized there was more than one perspective on most issues. Not most, all issues. There's always two sides to every story. Mm-hmm. So, it's so difficult just having to deal with the perspective that they can't be open-minded. And I'm sorry, getting back to what I was saying before is like, it's a group mentality. And one of the things that you hear a lot from the left side of the aisle is that they talk about groups of people. They'll lump all the Republicans in the world, or MAGA Republicans, or whatever you want to do. Mm-hmm. And I've never had that perspective in my life. I look at everybody as individuals, and I cannot really stomach the perspective of like, I don't like all of them over there for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. It's like, sure, or let's go to business, because that's an easy one for people to pick on. A lot of people hate big business, and they're going to bitch about Bezos and the other billionaires in the world that run all sorts of organizations. And it's just like, the whole organization isn't evil. It's just the guys that make the decisions. I'll easily go pick on Mark Zuckerberg. That guy, how he started his career. If you ever seen The Social Network on Netflix or wherever else is streaming now, that's a great telling of a story of how that guy's an asshole. Mm-hmm. I mean, his very first website was called Face Smash, and it's where he set up a website where he hacked into the Harvard computer systems, was able to get all these images of the female co-eds, and he created a website in one night to let people look through all the pictures of the girls and pick ones that were hot and which ones were not.
What a douche.
And literally, this is a true story. And that's one of the things that, he got in serious trouble with Harvard, but he was arrogant about it. Mm-hmm. And it's just, it's just a fascinating movie if you have the time to see it, but that is just the perspective from me, is like, I don't look at groups of people. I don't think of business as all evil. Most people that are wealthy is what gives most of us our jobs, and they own most of, the companies, and they help employ us. And that's just part of what it is to live in a capitalist society. But, not every person is evil. It's always a percentage of whatever group you want to talk about is the real problem, or the one that makes the most noise.
That's right. In fact, if I may just add to the comment about Mark Zuckerberg, for those of you who don't know, this will make you hate billionaires even more. Mark Zuckerberg is currently building a massive above ground and underground mansion in Hawaii. Very secretive home that is mostly underground. It's costing him $200 million to make it.
Pocket change.
The walls are around. What am I trying to say here? There's all walls around it for complete and utter privacy.
Barricade, moat.
All the construction workers that are working on this project have to sign an NDA. So it's this massive mansion above ground, and then it's like a mansion bunker underground. Mm-hmm. And with this elaborate subterranean rooms and corridors.
Sounds like a James Bond villain, doesn't it?
Yeah,
like
right?
one of those places, like
So
Moonraker.
And it's just basically underneath the actual house itself. The walls are made of metal and concrete, blast-proof doors, rooms for growing his own food, his own water supply, and a nuclear blast-resistant bunker. As a matter of fact, the guy who is building this for him is from New Zealand. And this guy from New Zealand who builds these enormous bunkers for billionaires has had 11 billionaires as clients for him to make these bunkers. And in fact, I think they're in New Zealand. They're in New Zealand. So
sure. Because that's probably where they think they're going to be safest is down there.
Right. So here's the thing: that they get all the money that they get. And let's say, what's Zuckerberg worth now? Like
billions.
Several billions. Okay.
Oh yeah, $200 million is honestly
it's a drop in a bucket.
Change. Yeah.
So I mean, here's my. I mean, if I can just put my 2 cents in, I don't have any problems with billionaires.
Your name's on the show, dude. You can put more than 2 cents in if you want.
if you want to become a billionaire or a millionaire or just rich in general, I'm all for you, man. Go for it. That's what America is. If you want to get to that, if you want to work hard, and I mean, let's face it, there's some devious undertones that take place in getting to the top, because you don't get to the top by being a nice guy. You just don't. You got to be a bastard.
Yeah.
All right?
You got to be an asshole to somebody.
That's right. So, but nevertheless, here's the thing. So you have people who are smart enough or have the desire enough to want to get to that level, and I'm okay with that. As you said before, these people they're gonna put money back into the system. They're gonna hire people like me to, I don't know, draw something for them or whatever, and that's what it's all about. So to put these people, not all of them, some of them maybe, but to put all of them into one category as being bad people, I don't believe that one bit. I can't say there's a fine line between doing things the right way and doing things in a kind way or devious way. All I know is that you should be able to separate the good people from the bad people by the actions that they perform.
Well, when your words match your actions, you say you're going to do something and you get it done, which is one of the things I can credit, honestly, the former president with. Trump, everything he said he was going to do, he got done.
That's right.
And I take that, honestly, full credit to him, because he's a businessman first and he knows how to make things work. And Joe Biden has never had a paycheck from any place else other than the government in his entire life.
And for 47 years prior to him being a president, he did nothing.
Not a thing, no bills, nothing that he created.
And he was a racist. And he was a racist.
On to a bunch, well, he definitely hung out with the segregationists. Mm-hmm. But yet he was down in a church in North Carolina where, a massacre happened. He decided to slam everybody out. I mean, I got to say also, just to say it clearly, this man is so full of hatred. I mean, I can't remember the last time he spoke in public without pissing off half the country. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, how's that going to work out for him? And
hey, listen, man, you know what? For all these Democrats who voted for him, F you. You get what you deserve right now. Your inflation, your gas prices, all your bills going up. You brought that on, not us. We had a good economy when Trump was president. And no matter how much you hate him and how much you might want to criticize me or Z for liking this man, the reason I voted for him was because he wasn't a slime bucket POS politician like all the rest of them are. Because that's how I feel about politicians now. Trump was the only man I ever voted for, ever, who did what he said he was going to do, and then some. He did more than the last 5 presidents before him. And there's no debating that. You want to listen to CNN and MSNBC and ABC and CBS, whatever, they put him down constantly because they have an agenda.
Well, they
Okay?
definitely do. Yeah, and an
But
ideology.
people like Z and I, we saw this man for what he was, not a politician. So let's be clear about that. Don't blame me for thinking that I'm some sort of a MAGA, a Republican, right-wing lunatic, because I'm not. I know what's right and I know what's wrong. And that's why I stepped out of being a Democrat, because I saw the corruption. I saw the downfall of a political party using
the hypocrisy.
Oh my God, the hypocrisy. And what they have done as a party. I would, when I was younger, and I was let's go back to the early part of 2000, even the 90s, the mid to late 90s. I was a performer in a band called the Myke Hideous. I had my issues with politicians and politics, but I got it out as an artist. I got it out through my music, through my artwork, through my writing. But you've got people today who simply hate the man for the color of his hair.
Right. Oh, so, that orange meanie.
Yeah. And he tweets bad things. Listen, when you vote for somebody, you don't get everything you want. There were things Trump did that I was against. Do you know, like, he opened up the ability for hunters to go shoot big game in Africa, like elephants and rhinos and hippos and all that shit. I'm against that. All right? But my point is this. Even though he did that and I was against it, I still knew that what he was doing as a whole for the country and the world, mostly this country, but the world as well, were good, positive things. You're never going to get everything you want. Never.
Well, especially not from a true politician, because that's
precisely.
Just to reinforce your point is the fact that, Donald Trump doesn't need the money. I mean, he didn't even take a salary.
Never took a salary.
So
for those, hold that thought. For those of you who don't know about Trump, he never took a salary as a president. What is it, $140,000 a year? He gave that to the veterans. Excuse me, I had to make that comment.
Tell me there's a politician that's ever given up their salary.
Never.
No, because especially that's the other thing is, like, it was clear to me. I mean, I've seen this man, my entire life, Donald Trump, on TV.
We all
in
did.
a variety of ways. Both you and I have been around the Northeast, so he's part of the news broadcast, for decades. Mm-hmm. So I already knew the man, but that's just it. He is a businessman. He already has made his money. He's happy. He has Mar-a-Lago. That is just a beautiful palace.
Which I had.
So. Right, and he's complete, and all of his businesses are doing, well, I guess they're doing well. I have no idea, but I mean,
they're trying to shut him down now.
Well, I know that. That's all, again, a whole level of BS. But
still, this is a man who could still survive on like $1 billion and be okay.
Sure, well, who should not be able to?
Exactly.
But in either case, the founding fathers, I will go back to again and point out, they did not want career politicians. Because that they knew that's what could happen is if you start having people that only get rich off of their working for government, then you're going to have people that will compromise their positions so that they can enrich themselves. I just have to bring up Chuck Schumer real quick. I looked him up the other day.
Assholes.
Back in only in the late 2010s or something like that. I think this is on his Wikipedia, on the Wikipedia page. He was only worth a few $100,000. He's worth $81 million now.
Is that so? As a politician,
how do you get $81 million
exactly,
and you're only earning $200,000 a year?
That's right. And the same with Joe Biden and his little stupid drug addict pornographic son Hunter. Okay. And nobody wants to address it. And for all that time, when at the end of 2019, when the laptop from hell came out, Trump was right again. He was right. And they all denied it. Oh, Russian collusion, misinformation, blah, 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 blah. Had that information come out prior to the election, the very possibility of Trump having won as opposed to President Corpse would have been much bigger than, the odds would have been much bigger. Okay? But, let's face it. We know what's going on. Okay? And any of you out there who are listening who think we are this right-wing conspiracy, supporting, like in January 6th and all that. No, we're not. We're people who are smart enough to see what the logic and the reasoning and the logical bits of information that we get from the media and what's happening around us. We're smart enough to see it. I'm sorry, I don't mean to boast. I'm not tooting my own horn here, but I'm not an educated man. I am not a college educated man. I don't know. Are you Z?
Well, I spent a lot of time in college, but I didn't leave with a piece of paper.
But weren't you a professor?
Well, actually, I actually got a chance. Now that I have experience in my life, I got to be accredited adjunct professor at a community college for a few years.
But you never actually went to college, though, right?
No, I went to college.
Okay.
I went to college, but when you get accredited, they're basically recognizing your abilities and your knowledge, from your lifetime of experience, and you're getting allowed to teach because you need an MBA generally.
What I'm trying to tell everybody is that I didn't go to college. In fact, I almost quit high school at age 16. I was going to drop out, and I was going to join the Navy at 16. I was going to get my parents to sign for me. Thank God I didn't do it because I don't even like water. I was only going to join.
That probably wouldn't work out.
No, I was only going to join because my father was in the Navy, and I wanted to impress him. But it's a good thing my brother talked me out of it. Anyhow, what I'm getting at is this. Z and I, we see things from a perspective of logic and reasoning. And we try to make sense out of things based on what we see, which, either good things or bad things. The topic of the show tonight being about morals is another example of what we're trying to express here. It's not simply about education. It's about how you're brought up. It's about how you're taught. Now, I'm lucky enough to have been brought up by two parents, okay, mother and father. And I know Z as my friend. He was not. In fact, Z had some tragedy in his life, which I'm not going to get into unless Z wants to get into it. But Z
point for a different point, different time.
Different point. Okay. So for those of you who don't know Z, he, again, the man behind the curtain, who, by the way, I couldn't have done this show without you, Z. So thank you for all the help that you've done, and I am sincerely grateful for allowing me to work with you to do this show. So thank you, my friend. I really appreciate it.
You are very welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
I am grateful for the opportunity as well to put this together and give both of us this opportunity to honestly get this out of our system a little bit.
I think it's going to go well. I hope it's going to go well. We'll see. This is only our third broadcast, but we'll see.
Yep.
In any event, Z and I, we talk about this constantly. Z might be a little bit more conservative than I am, knowing that, my background with like Satanism and all that and rock and roll, but him and I have walked a similar path together, which I'm not going to get into as well, which kind of brought us closer together, and as we began to speak more as friends. And that's one of the reasons that we decided to do this show. In fact, Z came to me, said, hey, let's do this. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. We see things eye to eye. And that's why we're here, and that's why we're talking about things right now. And ultimately, again, I'm just trying to say, when we look at things, we try to see them in a way that is logical and fair. Okay? Did I say logical?
yeah, logical and fair. And honestly, it's something else that we actually haven't used these words, but it's right and wrong, knowing what right and wrong is.
That is right.
So from my perspective, I've always had sort of out of the box sort of perspective. I'm an artist as well. I see and work in 3 dimensions because I've worked in 3D, programs and software, and I've created, virtual environments, and as well as I'm a sketch artist and so forth, and I've been working in graphic design for ages. But, I have what I like to call a perspective of the big picture. And I've been studying the big picture since I was in college, and I did go to college for 7 years. Unfortunately, I did not leave with a piece of paper, but I left with a great debt, but I didn't leave with a degree. And that's, again, a story for another day. But since that time, I got from that education an amazing perspective on the world. As I spent 7 years in college. I got a lot of education.
7 years? Did you learn anything? I hope you learned something.
That's just it. I learned most definitely. And from leaving that experience, I recognize the fact that, and I literally said this to myself in my 20s, like, okay, well, my education's not over. I'm just going to look at this. I'm going to the University of Life, and I'm going for the lifetime degree. And I just have to keep learning. And then thankfully the internet evolved and allows you to really learn, at your own pace about any subject you like. Yeah, as long as you're careful of the source. That's the problem.
The sad thing, as much as I agree with you on that statement about the internet, the sad thing is that many people, I don't want to use the word abused, but they don't really use it for its potential. Now, you know me, and the arrogant SOB that I am when it comes to the internet and how much I effing hate it.
Well, it's complex. It's not an easy thing to wrap your head. I mean, no, I'm empathizing.
It's supposed to be laughing with me. That was a joke.
Okay, fine.
The point is, I'm not a fan of the internet, believe it or not. And Z knows that. He hates me for it.
I don't know if that's good for business, dude. You really may not want to say that.
He hates me for it because it's you stupid SOB. No, he knows that I have a fear of it. It's because I'm not educated on it like he is, or many people are. And why is that? Personally, and it's just a personal thing, I tend to do things more so in my home, around my home, outside my home, on a canvas, on a microphone, in a book.
On a piece of paper,
right.
Show them your notes.
Look, you want to show my notes? Look at all my notes. See, these are all the notes I keep. But here's the thing: Z respects me for it because he knows that I'm being honest with him and how I feel about it. But the beauty about it is that Z will give me respect for the things that I do and I'm able to accomplish or complete or succeed in, and also respects me for knowing that I am not, and I freely admit this, I am not a educated, successful person when it comes to understanding the internet. I'm not embarrassed about it. I just don't.
And I can honestly say I'm not either, or at least on the successful side. But I am certainly knowledgeable, and that's where my perspective whenever I meet any individual in this world, and has been this way for since I was a kid, I guess. But I appreciate people for who they are.
Right.
Not what I expect them to be, not what I imagine them to be. I try to get to know them as they are, and I try not to be judgmental about it. And it's just not my place at this point. And the few times that, I've wavered in that and been judgmental or whatever, it's like it bites me in the ass. It's like I appreciate every person because in the end, I recognize this is another sort of philosophy or principle I came up with. Every human being on the planet has the exact same problem. We all are trying to... Yeah, exactly, you. Each and every one of us are trying to find happiness before we draw our last breath. Mm-hmm. And try and find it and hold on to it for as long as we possibly can. Mm-hmm. So as long as you don't define happiness as hurting other people or doing criminal activity or
right.
stealing and doing immoral activity, then, that's where you should be at.
That's right. That's absolutely right. I couldn't agree with you more. It's about, as I just said, logic and rationality. You got to, and you have to be taught these things. You cannot go from childhood to young adult to adult and think that you're just going to become wise. I'm going to toot my own horn.
You can't assume it for everybody.
I'm going to toot my own horn just for a second here. I admit I'm not an educated man, but yet I read books constantly. I've read so many books over the years. I'm fascinated with history, and I've studied religions. There's those bubbles again. And what I'm trying to say is that I learned what I feel was to be my own wisdom. I've learned as you get older, you become more wise into understanding what is right, what is morally right, what is morally wrong, and how to better yourself or better your life as an individual and those around you. Because ultimately that's what you want. We are supposed to be a civilized society. You know, we took our learning and understanding from the Romans and the Greeks, especially the Romans. I mean, there's so much we learned about the Romans from the Romans that are still part of today's world. But I'm straying from the point.
Yes.
All I'm saying is that you don't learn wisdom. It has to be taught to you. And morals are one of the most important things, because that's what separates us from being a civilized society as opposed to a savage tribe.
Exactly. And the interesting thing is, like we've been discussing tonight, you know, if you're not getting this from your family or from your religion, then where do you get it from? Well, I'm going to just throw this out here as another perspective. In my lifetime, I just say simply, you know, I had a broken family. So quite honestly, I more or less learned everything from my education, but it was also from everything that in the media as well. So it's an interesting thing, and I'll throw this out here, and this will probably get some interesting comments. But like, I was always a big fan of Star Trek. When I was growing up, you know, getting out of school in the 70s, the original series, you know, I'd get out of school, and, you know, the first things that were on TV was maybe Gilligan's Island and, you know, Batman with Adam West. But then there would be an episode of Star Trek. And that show in particular, I know Gene Roddenberry wrote those, you know, when they made all those episodes, they meant to have every episode have a moral. Mm-hmm. And it showed you clearly right and wrong on all sorts of topics, you know, from, you know, racism and hatred to, you know, greed and, you know, the pursuit of money and wealth, or as opposed to just enjoying life and learning. Because knowledge is power. It does provide a lot of power and helps with fears. The more you know, the less you're afraid of.
The opinions and ideas expressed during this podcast belong to the speakers and are not a reflection on the services used to distribute this podcast. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. Warning: if you find the content of this program to be offensive, too bad. Hey folks, thanks for listening to Finding the Truth with Myke Hideous. Listen, don't forget to check out all my hideous merchandise, including t-shirts, blankets, hoodies, CDs, and my book, King of an Empire to the Shoes of a Misfit. It's all available only at MykeHideous.com. And don't forget, that's Myke with a Y, M-Y-K-E, MykeHideous.com.